ditch car. It's got a 6-speed transmission. And this sucker will turn you upside down. 750 horsepower. And you nail it in any gear, up to 4th, you're spinning. And he finally, and the last time he got me because he said, if you don't fix it this time, I'm going to have to buy a Ferrari. And he went out and bought a Ferrari, kept it a month. Said, this is a piece of shit. Kept it a month. He came down here in it. I have another customer who, the hoist is mine because he conned me into working on a Lamborghini Condai. What a piece of crap. They charge $4,200 in a book for a tune-up labor, and you're cheated. Redoing a V12 Lamborghini with no timing marks, and the lifters are straight on the valves, and you have to lap spacers to get the right clearances on glass.
That's actually the easier part, as opposed. Was that a EV? So was it fuel injected or was it the carbs?
The carbs.
So the trick with a Lamborghini is actually dialing in those 6 carbs.
No shit. That took almost a month. I'm fucking with it, getting aggravated. But he followed me around here, stopped me on the road 3 or 4 times to try to get me to work on that stupid thing. And I didn't do it until he gave me a lift for $2,300. But it's just, you can't beat a job like this, for having fun.
Yeah.
You get unfortunate, cranky customers like him, and won't let me do what I want. I can fix him up, boy.
Yeah, you can leave my car the way I've got it.
Nitrous.
I've already done it. Just leave it.
I don't like nitrous. I like nitro. I run my go-karts on nitro. Love nitro. That's where you make big power. Of course, it's a little expensive anymore, but it was fun when you did it. When I first did my nitro car, I couldn't get it to start. We were at the tractor and pushing that thing up and down there, 70 mile an hour wood fire lick. Put alcohol in it, push it 3 feet.
John's still got one more to drive.
I know. He don't blow the damn thing up.
I think he's got an overheating issue, so that might be it.
Well, yeah, it will after you keep beating on it.
He needs to check the.
Yeah, let's reconvene this thing.
You want to talk about Malcolm?
Yeah, well, we can start with Malcolm.
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
Do you do electric fan upgrades?
No, I don't. I will tell you why.
Okay.
I've worked with Rod at Flexolite, their engineering guy, and he sent me the best thing they had, and we put it on Bricklin and it went up 10 to 20 degrees. The best fan air mover in the world is a Bricklin 7-blade forward fan, a 40 rod. Electric fans take power. They got to run on something. And the minute we took a white car, so went out there and we bought Yellow Rock, Flow Cool, Moroso water pumps, high dollar. We bought Robert Shaw thermostats. We bought Flexolite double 12 fans. We bought aluminum radiator from Griffin, and we put them in the car every day with barometers mounted on everything. And we take one part out and put it in. And we go out and drive from here, I think it was 65 miles, and come back. And then take that out and see what the specs were. The only thing that made any difference was the aluminum radiator, BTUs. The fan actually ran the temperature up because the horsepower required to pull the alternator to feed the stupid thing. And we took them out the same day and put back the fan and dropped the meter to 180. So we've driven as far as Charlotte with barometers just to see what the temperature. In fact, before the beginning of Bricklin, when I had my first shop, Ron, the cooling guy, gave me a little black box we borrowed from the Ford system that you plug into all your lubricant joints and get it all fixed up pretty. And then you run it out and do your tests, and then they put it in the Cray computer that night late, and it will give you an extrapolation of what the car would do with so much load, so much temperature, up the mountains, you know, the whole 9 yards, drive all over America on a computer. And the Bricklin was marginal in every venue. Oil temperature on the transmission is 258 degrees. Well, 240 is not really upsetting, but 258 is getting nervous. 260, that's getting a little heavy. Engine temperature, we were running over 230, 240 on oil.
Wait till you see the 300 once.
Oh yeah, I would see that occasionally. So you really have to understand that the cooling system on the Bricklin, and every car is brought to just the required, not the unusual. They're not going to over radiate or cool a vehicle because they've got to push it up to get it to run right. So that's how you do that kind of stuff. Kind of reconvening, everybody wants to know about Malcolm. I've written one or two about Malcolm in the sense that he was the man who had the dream. That is important. He was just dumb enough or ignorant, which are two different things, to not know that he didn't have a prayer of doing what he wanted to do. And Malcolm does a lot of things like that, not really recognizing, hey, this ain't going to work. Well, I've been there and done that a few times. But I guarantee you there's one thing for sure, I will never get it done if I don't give it a whirl. Because if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So Malcolm always asked the question, can I do this? Well, hell yes, you can do it. All right, we just got to have that. So he was the man who created the first loan. He lied, cheated, steal to do it. Any venue's good. He was involved in the test track or the racetrack in Phoenix. He got that lady who owned it to give him $100 grand or something. I don't remember all the paperwork. It was on. That's in Tossi's stuff.
Yeah, the archives I've got.
Right, you got that. It was amazing, the paperwork that was involved in getting the first situation started. When it got started...
Let me interrupt for one thing, just to give you a quick background on the guy. You all know he started Subaru of America, right?
Yeah, imported them.
He brought in the 360.
Also brought in the Yugo.
And he also brought in the Beartone. He brought, when Fiat stopped importing the X19, he was at the New York Auto Show. He went upstairs and got Beartone to start producing it for himself, and he brought those in at the same time he brought the Yugo. The guy has lost more money than probably all of us will ever make.
I hope so.
And the amazing thing is if he had just kept his Subaru stock, did nothing else for the rest of his life, he'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
The worst part about it is the fast track that he's talking about is the Arizona Speedway now. Mm-hmm. If he'd owned that, that'd easily be worth 150, 200 million. And he owned it back in the day as part of the fast track.
But he was always doing his thing. And Subaru is the one that got him pissed off because he had a whole bunch of those little funny kiddie cars in New York with no place to go because they were no longer viable to sell. So then he came up with they were going to make those Subarus into little race cars that you could run around a track and rent a ticket to drive them. That was the first conversation. The second conversation, he went over and he got involved with dune buggies. And that guy, which was a way to make these things. And then he had a guy work for him named Richard Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T, which was an interesting person. And they ended up, somehow or another, getting up with a car. Malcolm decided, he said he wanted to show the government what a safety car was, and it doesn't have to look like, to quote her, General Motors' answer to low-cost housing. It can be a simple, fine, beautiful car. So then the Silver Ghost materialized, at the dune buggy people. It was a combination of whatever was laying around. Had a Datsun rear end, a Valiant 6 motor, a transmission out of something, steering linkage that would not work. You could only turn the wheel one way. The other side, the linkage hit the oil pan and couldn't go nowhere.
Couldn't make a left turn.
Nobody cared. And it was strictly a look at, how do you like this? And the door jack was a hood holder.
It was International Harvester Butterfly hood.
Yeah, it's just a little thing. We got the same thing out here. That on car one we had a hood braces. But it wasn't nothing. It was strictly a concept. Well, that came out with Malcolm was able how to get more money. And he managed to get enough money to go to the next few. And the next few was they built a model, and he hired Herb, and they made a full-scale clay. And Malcolm was in and out because he's constantly money. So off of the model of the clay was a full piece fiberglass. That was turned into prototype 1. Now at that time, they hired Tom Monroe from Ford Engineering at night to do a little cheating. And he was faced with, here's a stack of AMC parts laying on the floor that you can have. And there's a catalog with tubing in it. Have a good time. So Tom and they brought on Bob Cliff, which was Zorka Duntoff's right-hand guy in the Corvette development program. So between Bob Cliff and Tom Monroe doing the frame, they come up with the frame, which is extraordinary. It has the least twist of any car made in that era, because we tested it for in their test unit. They will run home on 3 wheels, because we had people do that. Get drunk, tear them off, and just keep on driving. You know, they're amazing, okay? So they put the AMC stuff in there, and we still hadn't got the motor thing, really way Malcolm wanted. It started out as a 4-cylinder, fuel efficient. Gentlemen, when you buy a motor in quantity, you kiss somebody's ass so you can get them to talk to you. General Motors said no. Chrysler said no. Ford said no. Buick said no. Opel said no in Germany. Argentina sent us a fabulous inline overhead cam 6, but it was the dirtiest thing you ever saw, EPA, because Argentina don't give a shit about EPA. We put it in a car and still loved the way the thing performed. It was really nice because it took a lot of front end weight off the car and the handling went up exponentially. But anyway, long story, we got with the AMC because we could get it. And we could get the parts. Well, then we started with prototype 3, and then we got the engineering building, we got prototype 4. 4 was a 4-speed, because we had to have an EPA car that we could drive 4,000 miles under them driving it, under their supervision. That was called a tag test, because you can't change an inline driven part without another EPA test. Now, if you've got a new vehicle, it's 50,000 miles, no hiccups. It hiccups, the whole thing is null and void and throw it away. Those tests 40 years ago were our cost $2.25 per driven mile. So this is not something you do without paying a whole lot of attention. So we built prototype 4, and we used it kind of as a test run EPA car. Prototype 5 was crashed into the wall in Dynamic Sciences in Scottsdale. It's driving around now. No car in the world tested for the United States government in 1975 or 4 was even usable once they hit the wall. They broke the rear ends, wrinkled the trunks, frames wrinkled. Bricklin didn't go past the door box. The door popped open, the hood was reusable. We used it. That's how tough that car is. So that car, now prototype 6, sat on a surface plate in engineering. And one of the problems in Bricklin, which I hated passionately, when I first went in there, nobody had breadboard built a car. You know what that means? You know what that means? It's a fun project. A couple of you technical people will love it. You take the engineering drawings and you lay them out. And on every picture of a part, you lay a part that has been checked to the drawing or blue lined. And then you put the car together with engineering verified parts. Does a 1/2 inch 13 bolt go in a 1/2 inch 20 nut? No. Well, why is the spec that way? That's how you ferret out all of the stupid shit that happens in the old days when you got 40 people drawing things and no computer checking. There was no computer in the Bricklin. It's all hand drawn, full scale. So I had one program that was the breadboard. Now we took car 4 and built it breadboard because that's the one I get my hands on to make sure that the thing fit. Car 5 was going together as a crash car. Car 6 and car 3, for instance, went immediately to Las Vegas. Every time we turned around, we had show and tell. Do you ever remember going to kindergarten show and tell? Well, we had that almost weekly. We had some entourage coming in aggravating the shit out of us to show Malcolm something or other. So I decided if I want a prototype that I could use, I welded car 6 frame to the surface plate. I cured their ass. They got a little upset, but that's just how the way it goes. They didn't take my car for show and tell. So, and car 7 was built in Romulus, where we started this whole mess. And that was a ochre car. And we took a car 5 original, no, we took a bird cage in a frame, painted white and blue. We took that to the Four Seasons restaurant in June of '74. That was the world premiere. We actually took the Four Seasons over. Malcolm hired a plane in Detroit and flew the entire engineering staff to New York. He brought in all of the 235 dealers and their main coach in ruby and diamonds. We had a white car, which was car 4, in there on top of a fountain. That was the infamous branded car. Because somebody came up with, we're going to brand. That was Malcolm's, he was a pseudo cowboy at that time. So they took a branding iron, which had the Double B logo, heated it up, and pressed it on the door. Made a horrible mess, but they did it. We sanded it out, thank God, and we took it to a show thereafter. When we left there, we had an orange car, which was prototype 8, which from that point disappeared. I don't know where it went. That wasn't my job. My job was to get prototype 7 out of the lobby of the Four Seasons, off of the goddamn patio, down the stairs at 3 o'clock in the morning in New York City. This is not fun to do. I also had to put rear axle fluid in and transmission fluid because they all been drained. Because you couldn't have them draining in the floor in the Four Seasons.
Tell them about the spit.
Well, I'll tell them about the other one. The Four Seasons, you walk in, you got steps going up out of the lot, it's all marble. You turn and you go in to one restaurant, it's got an arch. Okay? Here is a Picasso. tapestry, 400 or 500 grand. We got to go up the stairs with 3 Bricklins, turn the corner, and get it in that room. Guess what? The Bricklin is wider than the door. It's not as high. So quick like a bunny, I figured out how to make a rotisserie. That we picked the Bricklins up, had a little cable winch on it, and you go and you turn up sideways, go through, turn it back down, set it back down, and go do it again. No problem. You haven't lived until you come out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're in this Bricklin, which they finally got the battery charged up, because they've been running doors up and down all day. And I'm sitting in it, and all of a sudden the right-hand door starts opening. There's a guy that's got pupils as big as my hands are. Hey man, it's the car. Whoa, gets in and sits down. I can't stop him because there ain't no goddamn lock on the door inside the car. There was when I got back to Detroit. You look in every one of them, they got a lock. So finally I talked my way out of that. And where the riggers are, I don't know. They didn't show up. I was out there for 20 or 30 minutes. And I'm thinking, somebody's got to get me off these damn steps. So they finally came, and we couldn't get the racks put in. The guy pulls up in an RT Charger, probably 330 quarter to 4. Said, "What you guys doing?" And I said, "I got to get some rear end in this thing. I can't get up in there to get the rear end fluid in." "Oh, you need a jack?" "Yeah." "What was it?" Thinks I just hydraulic jack. Well, I said, "What do you use that for?" "I steel tires." "Oh, okay." Jack it up, we poured a little fluid in there. We got it off the steps and it wouldn't run. Or we wouldn't start again. Jeff and I are pushing it down 58th Street, New York City, to the only gas station within 100 miles. Who said they didn't have a battery charger? Who didn't have a way to put transmission fluid in an oil pan? Finally got that with a funnel that we made out of paper. Got it started and drove out of New York City at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning with a Bricklin that was on the Today Show as we were going up the road. We got a $100,000 car. People are going this, all over us. And we drove up and ran out of transmission fluid in Rhode Island. Pulled the hood, released it, it broke. Okay, what do you do now? Well, we got lucky. We drove it up over the big drive-in curbs, and Jeff could reach up and get to the nuts on the hinge, and we opened it from the front. Took the hinges off. Then we just combobulated the cable. And we got the sucker. We had bets on that car for $1,000 we'd get it there. I told them we'll get it there if we have to carry the son of a bitch. We drove it into St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. First one they ever seen in their lives. Left it there, and that car, I don't know where it's at for this day. So that's the prototypes. Prototypes are generally exploited badly, automotively speaking. Mules, I've had Pontiac mules with turbos that the scoops were riveted on the hood with, Home Depot or pop rivets. Paintbrush with aerosol. Doors that don't fit, really crazy shit you do in prototype. But as long as you can isolate the particular device that you're trying to make work. So you go through all that stuff, but back at Malcolm, to succinctly put it, after the bankruptcy, in the program which we were supposed to be designing a new car, we had a meeting. Conference room about this size, maybe a little longer. And at the table were a department head or representative of all the people that it takes to run a small car company. You got a purchasing agent, a material man, a design man, a production man, yada, yada, yada. And you got a dummy like me, an ME manager, which represents 3 engineering groups. And we went around the table, and Malcolm was there. He actually showed up. And he says, what happened? When you fail, it's okay to fail if you learn. If you don't learn, it's not okay. So we need to learn what we did wrong. So we went around the table. He did his thing. He did his thing. Buzz did it first. Buzz Turner. And they were all basically pretty nice guys. And it got to me. And I stood up and I said, Malcolm, the company failed because of you. You were extraordinarily and completely responsible. You showed up 2 weeks to 2 years. You are the motivating thing that kept these people working. They got tired of working for somebody that had an affirmative mating authority. We had meetings, we called them the affirmative mating meetings. Nobody make a goddamn decision. They wonder why it costs more to do it later. Insane. Absolutely insane. And I said, you want, what you got is hooray for motherhood, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Everybody's saying what they think you want to hear. I want to tell you, when you met your father, whose claim to fame is he's a master bridge player, president or vice president of engineering, and he didn't know we had to have a roll-up window or that we had a V8 motor until August of 1975. And you call yourself the man. You are at fault 100%. And I've said it many times. Malcolm made a speech at the first Bricklin rally and said if I'd listened to Terry, we wouldn't be talking about the car that was. We'll be talking about the one which is. Those people, you had good people that were trying their damnedest to do this, and they were being shit on by politicians. Now you know by this day, I'm not a politician. I'm a run over it. And if you want the job to work and do, you got to run over if people aren't doing their job. And Malcolm didn't do his job. He was underfinanced and knew he was underfinanced and was perfectly happy being underfinanced, I think. But every time we went back, I will tell you the story of the end, which shows how completely stupid you can unplug any of that stuff. People are, especially politicians. And what happened was, I needed hard tooling. I told you about hard tooling and how expensive it is. I had a project in for $10 million that I wrote in June of 1975, along with Dave Niles and my guys. We wanted to change the roof line to make a curve and to do some stylistic stuff, but mostly it was assembly stuff. Try to make the car better to build. And the irony of that was that when we got to that point, we had to get approval from the Canadian government because they owned 67% of what we were doing. Now that made it a little harder to get people to listen because you had nobody in there that had ever been in a car company. Nobody. They all sit around the table having what I call tea and crumpets. But nobody made any decisions. So what happened was that the project finally got to them September 2nd, I think, 75. In the infinite wisdom, that's when we closed the plant. And John, did you have a picture of the cars? Out by the railroad siding, all the cars. I know I ran that one. There were 314 cars. So, well, it's in the office then, because I ran that one. And they were sitting there like little soldiers. We laid everybody off and locked the gates. Now the wisdom of that was for the Canadian board to review the circumstances. The insanity of that was that $4.532 million of letters of credit were waiting on the cars to be shipped. So we had $4.5 million in sales. I just talked to a guy last week. His dad had cars sold and never got the cars. Never got the cars. It wasn't a problem with production. We had 300 cars sitting there. It was a problem we weren't shipping the 300 cars. I don't understand exactly how that all worked. But then you have to call the suppliers. The people have trucks coming up with parts, right? And say, whoops, can't deliver your parts because the door's closed. So now what do? Then the suppliers suggest we would like to get paid. All right.
Sorry.
All right.
I got in the middle of your story here.
No
Thank
problem.
you very much.
Well, I hope
It's
you
good
enjoy
to talk to you.
All right.
Oh, absolutely.
Come down anytime.
Learned a lot. A lot.
Come down. Anytime you want to come down and visit.
Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Good seeing you guys.
Good seeing
too.
you.
So anyway, to make it a little less involved,
Bill, I'll see you later.
what happened
Keep me updated on your phone.
was that we owed $8 million to the suppliers, who of course put us on COD cash. Makes sense to me. So the $10 million deal, which we needed, which would take 2 years to spend, had now grown to a $14.5 million deal. Whoops, we got 8 more million. Oh my goodness, where are we going to get that $8 million? We can't come up with it. It's not politically expedient to put any more money in Bricklin because Trudell is pissed off. That was the guy who wanted Hatfield's job as premier of New Brunswick. So these people, who are purported to be reasonably intelligent, I hope, had completely destroyed the potential. That's when they called in the 22nd, me as the second highest paid guy there. We're going to shut down the plant for 20, we done it for 20 days. We shut down engineering with 10 people only in engineering to finish that. And I told them, well, forget that. Walked out of the office, told John McClure to go in. And before you go, John, get Cowan to go load my shit out of my office and put in that station wagon. What the hell's going on? I said, just do what I tell you and we'll talk about it later. So he comes back out of the office and says, what do we do now? I says, get the shit loaded and go to the bar, obviously, because we're out of a job. He said, well, they're going, I said, they're not going to do crap. There's no way in the God world they're going to get this thing going. Which was absolutely true. There's no way in the world that could possibly take off from that point. Then we had the Bricklin 2 saga, which we were supposed to build a new car. I ran my ass off, found a place to build it. It was a GM-powered vehicle, and it was going to be built in Detroit area with good people, and everything will be fine. And it almost worked until Malcolm told Cole that he didn't know how to build cars at a very public meeting. And that's how Malcolm would screw up a one-car food door. So that was the end of that shit. And then Malcolm went out. Let's see, what was his next fiasco? The next fiasco was Hershey, Pennsylvania, manufactured American car, which was a good one. And now he had on the Bricklin 2, of course he had the Bricklin Turner motor, which was right after the bankruptcy in Scottsdale, and that cost Frank everything, including everything he had, plus he died later, many layers. Frank was one of the more brilliant people I've ever been around in my life. We had more fun, you know, he was great. There was hardly anything he didn't understand. If he didn't understand it, he'd figure out. He taught himself how to, you know, run a CAD by himself. Never saw anybody run one in his life. You know, he did fabulous things, and he built some really good things, but he got to turn the motor, which was the rotating cylinder, 90-degree motor, fabulous thing. And I worked on that a little bit, and I figured out how to do it where we could vary the stroke, which was even more fun. With a waffle motor, which was we did that one in 1988. But the end of it was simple. For these kinds of programs to survive, Tucker, Kaiser had some good stuff. You know, you look at some of the 1950 Kaiser stuff, or Fraser. Fraser wasn't too slick, but Kaiser was pretty slick. But they had vinyl roofs. They had superchargers. They had Paxton blower on a 1954 Kaiser. You know, and a vinyl roof. They had tricolors. Hell, they weren't doing that. You know, that's actually 52, I think, was that they had that. So these people did some really great stuff. Yeah, now there's the parking lot when I got there. Look at all those cars. And the plant had cars in it. They planted cars everywhere.
Well, if the dealers were wanting these cars, why didn't they ship them to them?
Well, that's wisdom of the Canadian politician, which I stated at a meeting with 440 people. And where the hell I was, I don't remember now. And I said, the only thing about the Canadian politician that's good is that they're so bad, they make ours look good. I have never met a more confused group of ignoramuses in my life. And I went through the manpower board, the fiberglass board, you know, they throwed me out of my apartment, canceled my visa. You know what I made them do? They throwed me out over the boat anchor, because I insulted somebody. And I went home and they said, well, you can't go back, and I have an apartment up there. I said, well, we'll take care of that. I said, okay, fine. And about a month or two later, I got a letter from the plant manager. He said, I want you to be the ME manager internationally. I said, screw you. I want a letter of apology from the Canadian government. I did the same thing in Ford to the head of body engineering one. He stole my fixture. Pissed me off. So I took it home. Wouldn't let him have it until they wrote me a letter of apology. So I'm the one who designed it. Don't be messing with me. But Canadian people had never been involved in projects that require this kind of attention and that kind of speed. But that parking lot was storm full, and they didn't have a battery in one of them. You wanted to walk, and it was December, and it was fun. And the wind blew, and it was horrible. But that kind of stuff that got those cars out of there was the same thing that got the car built. Was people to go out, and the snow's horizontal. I went down and bought 3 wool sweaters, wore 3 of them at a time, and drug 4 batteries around on a cart and started the cars. And Jack would take them over and run them up to the thing. I'd knock out the locks. Sometimes I had to break the lock out of the hatch, drill them out, do something, get in the car, crawl over the ice, and get the stupid thing to start, and get it on the trucks. We ordered 258 of them. I found out buyers had cocked the price up from 35 to 65, and I couldn't buy with 3 cars. And Jack figured, well, shit, we can't get a full another load. And Jack didn't want to spend that much money. So we took 7 on the carload order, and 3 of them we drove. Went back to Detroit. But I spent a whole lot of time in this car. And I've driven to California and back twice in them. You can go wherever you need to go in one. It's an interesting car because you can make the car like mine, personalize it. That's what I call it. It's hot rod. It's like I want. It's not for sale. I don't have any intention of selling it. It's already in a trust for that matter. But the black car is another total different story. That car was done in 23 days as a show and tell. It was a car that was supposed to be, you get a gold lame suit, and we got pictures not here, they're in the office, of my wife dressed in a gold lame suit, and my youngest daughter in one, and my oldest or second daughter in a velvet suit to go with the brown car. So we know how to show, and then we know how to race, and that's a cool trip. See, and the thing I told some people here, I don't know if you know or not, but at Cars and Concepts in Detroit, actually in Brighton, Michigan, they have a show. They used to build the Mustang convertibles there before Ford went back to doing them. And the first DeLorean in the area came with John, and I bent the frame in my hands. They had the engine compartment. I reached down and grabbed that and just, I said, that's a hell of a frame there, John. John and I did not get along. He had no sense of humor. I don't understand that. And I told him, why in the God's world would you put it in the location you put it? Because you've taken the, it's a Volkswagen with a different grille. Well, that didn't make him feel good either. But one of the best quotes I ever had, I liked the door. I've got styling pictures of a vent window like that we actually designed to get rid of a window mechanism. And I told him, you gotta be kidding me. I'm not gonna do that. We're gonna figure out how to get the window to go up and down. And with the 75, we made some changes. It's not like I want it to be, but it's like what I can get done and make the thing work. Not as good as I'd like, but not bad. So we've had a very good opportunity with some very tight engineering parameters. I'm sitting in a very narrow roadway. You can't go over here because you mess up styling. I don't put wings on them. Won't do it. If I want to modify a body part like a scoop, it's on a hood that we made. We're not going to NOS part a hood. Ain't going to happen. There's a whole lot of ain't gonnas. And that's because that line, I'd have to cross it, and I won't do that. And I can proudly say, I'm going to tell you, to put airless suspension on one of these things, ain't no hard time until you figure out you don't want to drill no holes. And it took me a while to figure that one out. But I did it, because I wanted to. And on Tom's car, I had to put ladder bar suspension to keep from killing me. Because that's one thing with leaf springs, even with traction bars, you don't go in a straight line. Ain't no way. And a 4-link on a Bricklin is almost, it's not impossible, but it's extremely complex. So I put a 3-link in it, and I was able to get it stabilized with a pattern bar and keep the car going straight, sort of. With 500, 700 horsepower motor, it's hard to keep sort of in a line. And a 6-speed transmission, which is insane. But with a 4-barrel, we got 15 mile a gallon, that piece of garbage. And it's still running to this day, and I built that thing almost 30 years ago. And that's pretty cool. But I wouldn't want to do another one like that because it's just too much compromise. You give up too much of what the car should do. That's not a milk getter. No way in hell. It's not even fun to drive down the road in the thing, in my opinion. Tom liked it, but I just hated the thing because it was too hard to handle. But you have in Bricklin, in DeLorean, a whole lot of actuators like that one there, which is they're doing it someplace else, so it'd be okay. To get those dents put on the other side, Delco refused for a year just to make the linkage work correctly. geometrically for a year. The reason there is an air headlight is because John did an inventory and we had 6 actuators that were correct. Now, I don't care how good you are, if a vacuum motor quits and the guy comes in and his headlights won't work, what you tell him is you get a big flashlight hanging out the window. Because without that part, you're not going to get them up. So I said, okay, I don't have parts to fix them. I got to put something on the agenda. So I made an air headlight. Because I got air energy, why not? It's right there to use. The latch was a stupid thing. It was a seat back release off a Thunderbird. That's 12 pounds release energy. Takes more than that to release the latch. So you set it where it won't open and keep loosening it until it will. That's remarkably intelligent, wouldn't you say? It was so bad because we couldn't, with the hydraulic, it was impossible to lock the door, gentlemen. Impossible. That electrolinear actuator, which is a household jack, would not lock the door correctly. You have to have a primary and a secondary for lock. You couldn't do it because when you come down to the last 200s, the resistance here on a vertical plane. The cylinder is vertical also. Vertical doesn't turn into horizontal. It turns into bent door. Every time. Every time you shut the door, you flexed it. Not very smart in my opinion. So I can shut my air door and goes ka-cheek. Yeah. That's what it will guard. Now how serious was that problem? I set for, at a door buck, for about a month. We built a hydraulic cylinder activated loop that was inside the door frame down at the bottom, or actually the door sill. And we had to run hydraulic fluid to it that would push the latch out when the door closed far enough that it would go click, click, and then pull the door in. So we would keep from chucking and also rolling you out of the car. Then we said, well, that's too complex. How in the hell do you have to pull the body off to service it? So that's not really a good idea. So then we made one that was cable operated and actually went over to the cylinder base and we slotted the holes so when the cylinder came down, the door closed, the first click, and they go click, and then the cylinder base would come up and pull the door in down to latch. That's how serious it was to shut the door.
That was the original solenoid.
Yeah, there they are.
Latching it.
So the air latch we've been doing for decades and decades and decades. I've been doing it forever. Because the original was such a ridiculous situation in terms of the lift. And when Frank did the deal, Frank did it like I told him. See, brought the car in, and the door wouldn't shut double latch. I said, it's got a double latch, or it's no damn good. And I took on the front gas cylinder, which has more power than all you can put to compress. And then,
that's what we replaced it with.
yeah, the spring loaded.
No, that's the door latch.
It came from a trunk application?
I don't know.
What's that?
It came from a trunk application?
No, that came from Wilmot Breed in England. It's a door latch. It either has a lock cylinder on it. But that's another thing that's interesting, where you get those parts. But as we went through the process of the hydraulic door to the electrolinear, we took the door with my gas cylinders and my control panel with the drop door into engineering and let them do it. What was that guy's name I hated, Rod Fellows? He got in it. They powered the door up, which is intelligent, and then powered it down pneumatically, which is dumb as shit. Because you got a door that weighs 95 pounds that wants very seriously to come down with a capital S. So I said, that's crazy. So the show and tell Malcolm and an entourage. They got that thing mounted on the left side of the buck, which is at the center of the car. On the right side, they have a control panel with 8 valves on it, hoses running all over the place, thrown in the back hatch area. Just thrown in there. And Malcolm, engineering genius that he was, and his entourage didn't have a clue as what they were looking at. And they see this little round thing on the other side, which goes wah, 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 clack, 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 clack. Goes to mechanical clutch. And then goes back down the same way, which cost, I think, $97 OEM to put it in the car, both of them. The air door was going to cost like $300 or $400 because you had to buy all this stuff and you had to redesign some shit. Well, of course, that took about 13 seconds to figure that one out. And that's when I wrote that letter and I got that thing, you know, stop all air door, go this way. And I said, you're out of your mind. That is not going to solve the problem. And we got a $3 million warranty. How smart is that, folks? So that was why I wanted to prove the point when I built the first air door. I was only proving the position that I had taken in reference to the airlift, hydraulic lift, pneumatic lift, etc. Torsion bar, we tried that. That was a disaster. Because you have a lot of people hurt with DeLorean torsion bars. And we got a couple hurt with Bricklin torsion bars. But we also had a lot of problems with the structure around the torsion bar. And you got to take the program of energy. How do you store it? It's important. Hold that rubber ball in your hand. How long? How long before it's... Okay? Well, that's why I put the stuff in an air tank. That's designed and put together, welded by me for 2,500 times, the whole 1,800 PSI. You can't get over 150 or 200 anywhere unless you go to a multi-stage compressor. So I know I've never lost an air tank in 40 years. I've had the back of the car knocked off, dragging on a hose behind it. Never lost one, never lost one. I put it in the bumper. It is surrounded by 58 discs of urethane, which you can't hurt with a hammer. There's his
I'm
tank.
not gonna pass this around, it's a little heavy.
31 pounds. And that's made to fit the bumper. And we've never had one rust out, we've never had one do anything. But I did it so I know on my chest are scars from 10,000 PSI air, because I worked in Aqualung. But like I said, that's something we
I'm
built.
not the greatest welder in the world.
No, it's John's Wells.
But it's completely sealed.
You have shielding gas?
How long will it
You
hold
have shielding
air?
gas?
Our
9 years.
Well, this
How
was
long?
with
I've had cars that sit for
That's what I
9
said,
years.
I saw
The door will
the
open.
splatter.
Amazing.
There's no reason not to.
Gas on this arc weld.
There's no reason not to. I use exclusively Parker Hannafin fittings.
Yeah.
They're the most expensive, but they're the best.
Well, what kind of hose or pipe goes from?
DOT.
Not bad for.
DOT
really
nylon.
weld.
I don't have the touch for stuff.
I only use one kind.
I've only
Samuel
done
A. Moore.
welding and stick
Only
welding.
one.
Those-
And I've had laboratory tests on all of them.
You could use a wire though, I mean, that's.
They
small.
says
You
it's
use a
the
wire
same.
welder.
No, you can't.
No.
Wire welding is horrible. It's one of the most porous welder is. That thing looks like a water sprinkler. We've got it, but the only way you can do it intelligent, in fact, I do it with 7024 arc rod. But like I said, we've done a lot of little and some major things to the car, but none of them have been out there to hurt the car. They've always been to make it better, make it better, make it drivable. Malcolm, we have a guy that works his ass off who hates Malcolm, which I didn't understand completely, who's traveled all over the United States and Canada to make up a Malcolm bad story. And I got him down here for what, a week or two? How long was he here?
5 days.
5 days. And I finally got him to understand that we're not talking bad Malcolm here. We're talking a bad company here. Malcolm was not by himself there. You know, he had Joe Rose, the accountant. He had a guy that was in the advertising business, I think his name, Michaels. Of course, he had his brother-in-law had that too. You know, he had to spend some money on doing stuff. But Malcolm, I think, deserves an accolade. And people said he brought in the Yugo. You know why he brought in the Yugo?
It was marketable. You could sell them.
In my records, I'm not a real good record keeper. People cover their ass for records. I never worry about mine. If you come get it, come get it. But the Yugo was a Secretary of State, United States. What was the little short fat guy way back?
Well, Warren Christopher?
No,
Oh, Kissinger.
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 Kissinger was trying to save Citibank. It's written up specifically in the bank annals. And he knew that the Yugoslav government owed billions and were not going to even pay the interest. So he conned Malcolm indirectly into, I'd take one of those beers now, if you could.
Sure.
While you're over there. I don't want to wait. Malcolm to come over to there after he got shut down, you know, in his other endeavors, to import the Subaru, thank you very much. And he brought it over so that the Yugoslav government could export product to import money
That's our assist cylinder.
to pay off Citibank.
Right.
Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, go ahead and try.
You're a bigger man, and throw in 3 or 4 more.
Yeah, add a couple more in.
There's 275 PSI nitrogen in there.
Over oil.
So essentially Malcolm was doing a jobby for the government?
Okay. And he was able to go through the procedure of getting the car approved for import. I bought one for my daughter. And I did it because my wife said, we're not leaving town until she gets a new